Hey, what's up, everyone? Yeah, I needed a little break today from all the dumb that I have been exposed to in the last 24 hours. It's cumulative. I've learned over the years that dumb is cumulative. It piles up. It gets worse and worse, and then you just have to let it all out sometimes. And so I'm taking a little step away from the dumbness for a little while, at least for next, I don't know, 2 hours. Well, I don't think this is going to go that long. Maybe about 90 minutes, I guess. But I do need a break from the stupidity that's out there because there's just been so much. I've been inundated with dumb and enough dumb for a little while. I thought we'd do something a little bit different, a little bit fun, a little bit entertaining and educational. I know I've had a lot of people come to my channel recently. I get that. A couple thousand people have subscribed recently. Love to have you guys. I'd like you guys to see what most of my content is actually about rather than what people could refer to as the drama stuff. I actually do science. I do philosophy. I do logic. I do fun stuff. I play games. I don't know. It's a potpourri of stuff. But tonight we're going to do the laws of logic because I wrote a blog. People may not know I have a blog, what's called 3 a.m. philosophy. I usually write it about 3 a.m. That's how I actually got its name. But I wrote one the other day because I had polled on Twitter what people kind of wanted to learn about. And I had asked, do you want to maybe the basic laws of logic? Do you want to learn about this or that? And this one actually won overwhelmingly. So I did a really kind of a quick synopsis of my understanding of the laws of logic. Again, I'm not formally trained in logic. I've had Boolean logic. I've had some informal logic in college. I'm not erudite in the field of logic, but enough to get by for the very basics. And so I kind of do this. What I do is I figure if I could understand this stuff and I'm not that formally trained in any of this stuff, then anybody can. And if I can explain it in a way, maybe they can pick it up. And that's kind of the goal of these things. And plus, it gets the mind working a little bit. So instead of sitting around just talking about stupid people doing stupid things, which, by the way, we used to do a lot, and we still will do on Rum and Coke, let's talk about intelligent things for tonight. So, yeah, by the way, if you guys got questions, I am watching the live chat. I got my caffeine with me. So we should be sure to go. So first of all, if you're not subscribed to my blog, you can actually go to thegreatdebatecommunity.com. And you can actually subscribe to it, so whenever I write a new blog, you get notified via email. I had to eliminate a whole bunch of fake accounts. I knocked them all down. I only have about 200 subscribers now on my email list. But if you want to get on that list, just go there and fill it all out. It doesn't take very long. And you'll get notified when I do make a new blog. So this one right here, let's see here. Let's go to my full screen here. That kind of looks distorted, doesn't it? Yeah, I don't like that. All right. You know what? We're going to go back to here and put it up here. All right, let's do that. I thought that would be better. By the way, Cross, I do mention 0.999 equals 1 in my blog here. There actually is an example of that, but I don't get into one of the things I had asked, though, hey, do people want me to explain 0.99 repeating equals 1 for the billionth time that I've done over the last, I don't know, 10 years? Well, at least on Facebook, it's been 10 years I've actually done that. But that didn't get the winner. So this actually got the winner, and I kind of do what people ask of me when I do ask for their opinion most of the time. So we're going to dive in. And so basically, the way I broke this down was to try to explain what exactly the laws of logic are. There's a whole bunch of laws of logic. There's not just 3. There's 3 historical canonical type laws of logic. These are the ones that people always seem to talk about when they're running with a discussion against a presuppositionalist, right? A presupposition apologist who basically presupposes the existence of God in order to basically have a justification for knowledge. That's really the whole point of presuppositional. I'm not going to say argumentation because it's not really an argument. What presuppositionalism is basically is a way to try to confuse people. It's not an argument. Greg Bahnsen, one of the pioneers of presuppositionalism, actually has said it's just to shut the mouth of the non-believer. It's not to get you anywhere. So presuppositionalism is basically it's a little shell game. And one of the things that it attempts to try to do is to say that, look, you as a non-believer has no way to justify your claims to knowledge in some cases, especially when it comes to certain things like how do I justify the use of induction from day to day, right? There's no possible way I can verify that induction is going to work tomorrow. I just don't know. It's a subjunctive case that it may or may not. It's a counterfactual condition that tomorrow, if that the laws of logic work or the Hume's problem induction that you can't justify induction and induction fails in some possible world, sure. You can't justify it. You can't justify the use of it. but you still have to use it, right? We still all use induction. But the human problem with induction basically is that no way to actually justify it because any attempts to do so is circular. And of course, the same thing with the laws of logic. Trying to justify the laws of logic, you can't do it because you need logic to do it. It's the same game they play by saying, well, how do you rationalize using rationalism or rational thought? How do you use reason to justify reason? Well, the simple answer is you can't. I mean, you have no. Well, I should say that you have no other choice to. You can't justify it, but you have no other choice but to use reason to justify or to use reason. So you can't. It's like somebody asking somebody, hey, how do you do a no arm push-up? Well, you can't. I mean, to do push-ups, you have to have your arms. Same thing with reason. You have to have reason in order to start even beginning to have the ability to reason other things. It's just an axiomatic type thing. So what these laws of logic are axiomatic things. They're what we use in classical logic. Not all types of logic have them, but I'm going to read through what we wrote. It's like the royal we, right? What I wrote about it, then you guys can ask questions, because I know a lot of people kind of had asked about the symbology, and I'm going to write the symbology down next time. I guess my next post, because people have asked me, to kind of have a legend of what the symbology and what the terminology references and what it means. I can understand it could be inundating if you've never seen some of this stuff before. But the way I write my blog is I write it simple, but I throw some little more complicated stuff into the show that it is. Even some of the more complicated stuff has some basic things that most people can understand, right? I don't want people to be scared of that kind of terminology because it can be really intimidating. So what I wrote is this. I said, it is almost an inevitability that in any discussion with a person engaging in presuppositional apologetics that the phrase laws of logic will be uttered, and so as some prescriptive way to somehow prove or at least validate the existence of God. Now, anybody who's been in these discussions would probably verify that is true. By the way, I hope you guys can read this. If it's not big enough, let me know. I can try to enlarge a little bit more, but hopefully you can see it well. Maki's like, I spare the good news of the biconditional if and only if. Yeah. Well, I'm going to do one on, I might do one on material condition, because the material condition is kind of weird. The way that the truth table works for material condition. It's only false if the consequent is false. And that kind of makes for some strange things because there's no implication from one thing to the other. Like I always use, like, if the moon is made of green cheese, then I'm a moose. That statement is true only unless the consequent is false. If both the antecedent and the consequence is true, it's true. If both are false, it's still true. The only time it's false is if only the consequence is false, which is really weird. And there is a type of logics out there called rationalist logic, I believe it's called, that tries to do away with some of that weirdness when it comes to material condition. But you're taking me on a tangent, Maki. Don't take me on a tangent. All right, so let's get back into this. By the way, have you guys been in presuppositional argumentation where you've seen people use this kind of stuff? Like, they always mention laws of logic. Well, this is what they're going to be talking about. So people want to reference this in future, they can. So here we go. While they are known as while they're known as the laws of thought, or actually, while they're also known as the laws of thought, they are really more merely descriptive principles of logic and axioms, from which classical logic is predicated upon, which extend from propositions to ontological states. Now, I'm going to get more into that later on. I wanted to include that for a very specific reason. I didn't want to get into the depths of ontological uses of these terms, but they are extended into ontology, which is existence or being. And I'm going to do that on another page, but I just want to set this as a little precursor for that. As analytical propositions, they are a priori knowledge, which is known by a priori justification independent of experience. What I mean by that is when they say a priori knowledge, that means that you don't have to go out and don't have to experience it. It's not something that's predicated a posteriori or predicated by experience or experiential. I don't have to go experience that x equals x or y equals y or 1 + 1 = 1, right? I can find these out to be truthful just by analytical distinctions. And so an a priori knowledge is something that you don't have to go experience or observe to recognize as something that's true or knowledge, right? And analytical propositions are a posteriori and ours on a priori justification, meaning that we are justified to how do I explain it? This is gonna be a hard one. When we have a foundation of justification, we want to have a foundation by which we can know things, right? And there's different ways to do that. There's what's called classical, classical foundationism. There's foundherentism, and there's coherentism. These are the main ones. There's also infinitism as well. But these are different ways we can formulate a justification for having knowledge. Now, in classical ways of looking at it, the classical foundationalist approach, there isn't really no way to justify these properly basic beliefs, and I have other videos on that. But needless to say that these logic, we have to accept axiomatically. We have to accept them as a priori truths or a priori knowledge that we don't have to go out and experience to know that they're truth, but they are axiomatic. There are other systems out there, logic, that don't use these types of things. They don't use these laws of logic. Classical logic is not the only schema of logic. Okay? All right. Let's see here. By the way, some people are getting confused here already. Did I say 1 + 1 = 1? I think I said, no, I don't remember. 1 + 1 = 2. Did I say 1 + 1 = 1? Hussein, you didn't understand what I said? Which part? And I will definitely, by the way, I'd like to interact with the live feed when I do these for people that watch. So I get real-time feedback when they need some more assistance. But I'll continue on while you have some questions. Often these laws can be extended to other forms of logic or semantic interpretations. However, many forms of logic deny or exclude them from outright, that should be outright. I'll fix that later. Such as paraconsistent logic, a logical system which allows for contradictions without falling into principal explosions. Contradiction Qbert, I believe that's pronounced in, it's Latin or French. Maybe is it French or Latin? I think it's Latin, but it sounds French. Dialtheism, which is a type of paraconsistent logical system that allows for true contradictions. I have written about those before. I'll get more into those later. Fuzzy logic, intuitionist logic, and all forms of logical that should be logic that allow for truth gluts, sentences both true and false, and truth value gaps. A sentence is neither true or false. By the way, I had somebody proofread this, and they missed 2 already. I will fix those, but later. But what those are is basically saying a paraconsistent logic allows for types of logic that doesn't have principal explosion, where anything can be proven. That's what the principal explosion is. That you can literally prove anything given certain conditions. There are types of logic that we need ways of having true contradictions. I wrote one blog a while back called an example of a married bachelor, right? Because that's one of the canonical things, about classical logic. A bachelor is an unmarried man, which is by definition, which is analytical. However, in other types of logic, you can get around that a little bit. Let's see here. Oh, call you Mike. Okay, Mike, I got you. So there's some types of logic that doesn't use these laws of logic. They'll have what's called a truth value glut in multi-valued logic that instead of having T or F, it can actually be U, which is unknown. Matter of fact, fun fact, this is where Matt Dillahunty started blocking me, is when I was talking about multi-valued logic ages ago, and he's like, well, you either believe it or you don't believe. I'm like, yeah, proposition is either true or false unless we're talking about multi-valued logic, which in the case you can have truth value gluts and gaps. I don't think he was understanding that, but that's just a side note. So it is generally held that there are 3 types of logic, laws of logic: the traditional, historical, and the canonical laws of logic. So I'm going to go through each of them independently. I didn't write a lot about them because I don't think there really needs to be a lot said about them. That's why I don't think this video is going to be very long. I just wanted to give a real brief overview. Man, I cannot talk today. What'd you guys do to me? I have not been drinking today at all. I've literally just had coffee. For some reason, I'm kind of having a speech impediment today more than I usually do. You know what it is? It is the overwhelming dumb that I've had to deal with over the last, especially 12 hours and probably 24 hours. It has been legit insane, trust me. But I'll get into that tomorrow and the next day. I've got some things that are coming out. Dealing with some of the idiocy that I have to deal with. All right, so let's start with the first one. The law of identity. This is what some consider the most foundation of all the laws of logic. Socrates implied it in Plato's, how do you pronounce it? I know I'm going to butcher this. Theaetetus, by asking the question, then do you think that each differs to the other and is identical to itself? Bertrand Russell more explicitly described it as whatever is, a shortened version of Parmenides' philosophy of what it is, while Leibniz referred to it as everything is what it is. and what it cannot be. Aristotle considered it to be the most fundamental law and obvious truth. Aristotle didn't really care for some of the other ones, from what I recall. He didn't like the law of excluded middle, or at least he argued against it at some point, from what I recall. But the law of identity was considered to be foundational. It was considered to be something that just could not be any other way. Now, there's a couple arguments against it, even dealing with special universes, dealing with something. But it has to do with the indiscernibility of identicals. But we'll get into that another time. But mathematically, the law of identity can be represented as this formula here. And I think this is where people's heads start spinning. They see mathematics and they go, "What's that?" And I will have a page that explains the math, but real simply, that upside down A just stands for all of. That's all it means. It's for all of. And so for all of x, x equals x. That's it. For any variable you stick in there, for x as a variable, they're equal to each other. There's an equality there. There's an identity there, right? So it doesn't matter whether you have all of y equals y, all of a, all equals a. I just use x as a variable. Now, normally I use uppercase when I'm using it for a set of things. I did it in this particular case because everywhere I've ever seen it written, it's always lowercase. I'm not sure why, but for all of x, x equals x. That's it in logical notation. That's it in mathematical, in first order logic. That's how it's identified. So that axiom, right, is what would be one of the canonical principles of the laws of logic. So when they say, what is the law of logic? All of x, x equals x is the law of logic. That's one way to kind of define it. By the way, I heard a beep earlier. Did I get a super chat and I missed it? I don't want to miss any super chats or something. Or maybe somebody subbed. Unlike other laws of logic, the law of identity is related to terms and not propositions. It is used in propositional logic. In other words, propositional logic has to do with a statement that is either true or false. It's either true, it's truth apt, so it's either true or false. But the law of identity isn't related to that, right? It doesn't have anything to do with propositions. It has to do with the fact that an entity is the same as itself. An object is the same as itself. In more informally, it can be merely stated as x equals x, a equals a, or a is a. All relate to the same concept of something is itself. Identity is a type of binary relationship which is between the object of equality and itself. This is very closely related to the second-order logical principle known as what Leibniz referred to as the identity of indiscernibilities. And there's two really things on that. There's the indiscernibilities of identicals, and there's identity of indiscernibility. They're related, but they're a little bit different. One is considered to be non-controversial. The other one's a little more controversial. But that goes back to the law of identity going into these. If you have two universes that are exactly the same of each other, but it's far more complicated than we need to get into. But this also can be written mathematically, okay? And what this is basically saying, and why it's using second order logic, is basically on second order logic, you're using more sets of things. Like F is standing here for all the properties given of the set, okay? So it's not just one thing. It's second order logic is going to be more incorporating multiple things. By the way, is my chat working? Because I'm not seeing it move. You're just being very quiet. That's unusual. Let me hang on. Let me update this. Let me say something in the chat. You're scaring me here. I can't see anything. So what's it saying is that for all of x and all of y, if x and y have the same properties, then x is identical to y, where f of x represents the properties of x. Capital letters tend to represent properties, while lowercase represents subjects and referential expressions. So in this particular case, what this is saying, that for all of x and all of y, that for all the properties in f, that any property of x that is equal, well, this is actually biconditional, but f is the same as y, then x equals y. This means for all properties of these two things, all the properties of x and all the properties of y, if they're exactly the same, if all the properties are the same, then x has to equal y. This is a relationship. This is an identity that it's called. Adam Morgan, $2. Join the dark side, Steve. Logical nihilism. I'm not much into nihilism type stuff. Although I have read something on logical nihilism the other day. I didn't quite fully understand it, though. But so this is actually just, like I said, it's just saying that the identity of indiscernibility is if two things have the exact same properties. They're indistinguishable from each other. They have no discernment between one and the other, then they are the same object. This goes into what was called the one electron universe theory that Richard Feynman was talking about. If all electrons are the same property-wise, they're indistinguishable from each other, then they would be the same electron. Right? There's only one electron, but there's many different instantiations of that one electron. This could also be this could also be more explicitly defined as x equals x equals, and I used this little symbol. It could be DEF, could be DF. I just like this little subscript DEF. Doesn't really matter how they all mean the same thing. For all of f of x has the same properties of f of y. So that's just basically saying it is by definition that if all the properties of x are the same as the properties of y, then x must equal y by definition. This is more of a defined way, explicit definition, right? You can also use the semicolon and equal sign. You might see it that way as well. But it just is saying that this is actually a definition by mathematics. This is a prescriptive definition. Excuse me. So while the laws of logic are descriptive, they describe the universe, that doesn't mean we cannot prescriptively give them a definition, right? Because this is a mathematical definition that would literally say that in this particular case, this isn't the law of logic, but this is related to the laws of logic, that if two objects are identical and indistinguishable from each other with the same properties, they are the same. Where x is the same as y by definition, given they have exactly the same properties. And here we go. This is from, I think, Maki out there. Example, 0.99 repeating equals 1. Why, you ask? Good question. Because 0.99 repeating is just a different type of signifier. It's called an infinite decimal expansion representing 1, as both have the exact same properties, as they both exist on the same exact point of the real number line and are the same value. In other words, 0.99 repeating and 1 are indistinguishable from each other. They are identical. Now you say, well, they look different. No, the symbology looks different. This is where a lot of people get confused. This is a signifier, meaning infinite decimal expansion, right? So you have a sequence. You have 0.9, 0.9, 0.999. These are a sequence ad infinitum to infinity. Or a series, which would be 0.9, 0.09, 0.009 plus ... to infinity. That's just what the symbol represents. This symbol represents the same thing as 1, but they are indistinguishable from each other as they represent the same exact point on the number line. So they are the same value. They're the same number, just the expression is different, right? The way we express it by which a signifier. It's no different than saying 1/2 equals 0.5. 1/2 is a fraction, right? 0.5 is a decimal notation, but they represent the same value. They're just different ways of looking at it. I mean, you can say that my name is Steve. You can say my name is Steven. It's still me, right? And by the way, my real name is actually Steven. I've lied to you guys all these years. So if you want to catch me in a lie, there you go. My real name is not Steve. It is actually Steven. I know, gasp. Please forgive me. But that's what the indiscernibility would be applied to. Something like that is that these values are exactly the same because all the properties are exactly the same. Right? Hey, Cheshire. Cheshire's learning stuff. She's learning math. All right, so the next one that you often hear in these discussions is called the law of non-contradiction. The law of non-contradiction is that a proposition cannot be true and false at the same time. Propositionally, law of non-contradiction can be defined tautologically as LNC, and again, I use a little defined symbol. You also, like I said, you can see a semicolon equal sign. You can also see a triple bar, and you can also see an equal sign with a triangle over it, means also definition. So the law of non-contradiction, I'm telling you, I could not talk today. Cheshire, why did you make me go live today? I'm not having a great day today. I'm telling you, you guys do not even know the crap that I've been through with dealing with dumb people. So I'm trying to do smart stuff now and see what happens. The law of non-contradiction is defined to be the negation of P and not P. And by the way, I've noticed in some places I put or. I don't know why I do that. It's just so habit. It shouldn't be. It needs to be and we'll get into actually why. But what this is saying is that the law of non-contradiction by definition is such that you cannot have P and not P. P and not P is a contradiction, right? So meaning that given any proposition, it cannot be both true and false at the same time, or given any two propositions, A is B and A is not B are mutually exclusive. You cannot have them both. Either A is B or A is not B. There's no way that can be both. I tend to use merely by personal choice, capital P, or say A is B to infer any or all propositions, and lowercase p when referring to specific propositions. But to my best of my knowledge, there's no standard convention on this, and not P and not P and not P and not P in lowercase would represent the same thing. Again, I'm not really sure because I've seen it written many different times, and they have what's called atomic sentences versus molecular sentences. And P generally as uppercase represents a group of propositions, but I don't think there's any hard and fast rule on that. I had Dr. Kroon look this over. He didn't seem to have a problem with it, so I don't know if there's any standard on it. But you'll see it written either way, either capital P or lowercase p. This can also be represented in terms of what's called meta theory, which is meta theory is a theory about theories, like meta language is a language about languages. And this one gets a little more complicated. But I thought it important to include this because this one would really be a way of expressing something via a meta theory, which I plan to write a little bit more about. But it says for all of P, you cannot have P and not P, where both be true. That T means true there. And what that means is true as in it is not false. This would be read as for all propositions, it must be the case that the proposition is true or its negation is true, as in its negation of P is equivalent to P is false. Now, this is kind of something I want people to kind of wrap their heads around. Usually we say P is true or false, right? But we can say something like the negation is true, right? Because we always think to ourselves, well, negation means false. Well, yes. But when we say that the negation is true, we're saying that the proposition is false. These are equivalent statements, right? So if I say negation of P, that's equivalent to saying P is false. If I say P is not true, right, then I'm saying that it is false. Same thing. Actually, I Bullinator looked this over too, so if there's any mistakes, blame him. The couple grammatical errors I'll fix after we're done, but I think he just checked the logic. But that's a lot of non-contradiction, basically. That's what they're talking about when you hear these preceptors talk about these laws of logic, that a proposition cannot be true or false at the same time. Now, that gets into complexities because there are, again, types of logic out there that do allow for something to be neither true or false, like multi-valued logics. And sometimes there's reasons for that. And there's also reasons to accept that may be not the case that something is true or false. For example, if I say it will rain tomorrow, that proposition in classical logic, if I'm not mistaken, has to be false because it hasn't happened yet. I don't remember the reasoning for it, so don't quote me. I think Russell wrote about it, but it's a future tense case, right? So it hasn't manifested yet, and there's some reasons like it's always been false. It's false today. It must be false tomorrow, and that presents a problem in classical logic because you're already saying that, hey, look, because that proposition has been false, it's false now. It's going to be false tomorrow. That you can actually make the argument it won't rain tomorrow. There's an oral argument that goes something along the lines of there'll be a war tomorrow, and something about a war tomorrow. I don't remember the whole argument, but basically the war can't happen because the proposition is false. I'll look into that another time. But long story short, there's reasons why we have other types of logic to say, well, this is a future case, so how do we treat it? Or if there's fictional cases, like in fictionalism, like the King of France is bald. Does that have a truth value to it because there's no King of France, right? Do you treat it as a fictional statement? Do you treat it as something that's true or false? Do you treat it as something other? This is where you start getting into semantic theories and other types of theories that allow for certain things like that. And those are a lot more complicated, so I'm not going to get into those right now. But anyways, this is a way of expressing the law of non-contradiction, either by definition, or by meta theory. So again, when you guys are talking to preceptors and you want to use some logic, feel free to copy this notation. Most of it is cribbed from other sources, but like I just use my own notation for some of this stuff. Let's see here. And by the way, I do have things in my citation list if you want to go look it up. Some of this stuff came from a philosophy logic book that was really good by Roy T. Cook. All right. The law of excluded middle. This is the final one of the canonical ones. You can actually derive the law of excluded middle from the law of non-contradiction. This one states that the use let me start this. So, by use of one of the De Morgan laws, which I'll get into, you can derive the law of non-contradiction from the law of non-contradiction, the law of excluded middle, that a proposition must be either true or false. De Morgan's law, there's two ones really, but one of them states this. It says if you have a proposition or two propositions, P and Q, these are two different propositions, and you want to take the negation across them, okay? It's a little bit different than doing just a normal distribution, right? Distribution, like for example, if you have like x plus yz, you end up with xy plus xz, right? It's called multiplication over addition. But this is not multiplication over addition. This is not just even normal distribution. This is not multiplication, or excuse me, it's not distribution over and. So what you have to do with this is you have to actually, did I miss an equal sign there? Yeah, I missed an equal sign here. This should be equal here. Because it's equal to the negation of both P and Q, but you got to flip the and to an or. Okay, so you got to change your and to an or on the De Morgan case. And I wish I would fix that. I can't believe somebody missed that. There should be an equal sign in there, shouldn't there be? Or at least a bivalence sign. Am I not mistaken? Did I mess up? Boolinator, I blame you. Or is that right? Yeah, there's got to be some kind of a conjunction between them. So I'm missing a connector. So, yeah, but I caught that. So there's going to be a bivalence or biconditional connector between them. I'll add after this. Everybody missed it. God, what's up with you people? All right, so I'll fix that. So given that not P and not P, you can derive LEM by simply saying, okay, I'm going to distribute the negation across here. By doing so, I get, just like you would normally, not B and not P, right? And then I have to flip the and to an or, okay? And then when you have double negation, right? Not P is just P. So I have not P or P or not P, right? It's just same thing, right? Yeah, I mean, you're still distributing. Yeah, this is a form of distribution, but it's not like a normal distribution where you, like when you're distributing multiplication over addition, you don't change the binary operator, right? You don't change the addition. Here you actually have to change the operator. You have to change and to an or, right? So that's what Morgan has to do. So propositionally, the LEM can be then defined tautologically as LEM defined as not P or P, which is basically how I just put it as P or not P. You can also say or explicitly by law that it's always true, which is P or not P. This triple bar means defined being, or it's a little more stronger than equality, is true. This is a tautology. This is always going to be true. So you can use that as a way to define the law of excluded middle. So this, and this are all ways you can actually use when you're talking to a preceptor on Twitter, something like that, to define these different types of laws of logic. All right. One thing I noted on here. Yeah, I'll fix those things. This is one of the reasons I do this in video, so I can actually do it in my head and fix these things if I come across them. So I am noting these changings in my head. It's interesting to note, though, the double negation rule, also known as double negation elimination, not P implies P, or basically it's a little stronger than implies. It can be replaced with P, or not P implies P as a biconditional, meaning that you can go either way on it, or not P, which is called a turnstile. P, which is called sequent notation. Those all are different ways of expressing the same thing. If you have not P, you have P, right? That is a double negation. Now, when people are telling me before, hey, Steve, on your other post, you have not B, not P, which does not believe the proposition is false, that's not a double negation. Okay, this is a double negation. This is one of the reasons I included in this, because a lot of people don't understand double negation when they think that not B, not P is double negation. No, one's on the predicate, one's on the proposition. Completely different things. But this is a double negative right here. Not P, not P. But in intuitionist logic, double negation rule, A, which is defined as not P here, which means you can, if you have not P, or not A, you have A, doesn't hold, such that not P does not imply or does not entail of any kind P. P has to be derived independently. You cannot derive P in intuitive logic by saying not P. Now, there's other things in intuitive logic for theorems that do use it, but you cannot derive P directly from not P. I don't use intuitionist logic. You want to go read about it, be my guest. At least so far as that P cannot be derived directly from the double negation. Now, fun thing to leave you guys on. There is a little site that I like. It's right here called proofs.openlogicproject.org. So just for fun, I proved you can derive the LEM from the LNC using a natural logic checker that I use. And you can go play around with it. So if you guys want to play with this stuff, this is what I recommend. This will help you immensely trying to understand some of these rules of logic, right? So this is kind of fun. And I did go to this site, and I did this. So what you do is you go to the site, and you just type in what you start with. And in this case, obviously, I started with the law of non-contradiction, right? What do you want to conclude with? Well, I want to conclude with the law of excluded middle. Okay. You hit create problem, and I'll say, okay, construct a proof for the argument that the law of non-contradiction concludes with the law of excluded middle. Okay. So it doesn't tell you whether you can actually do this or not. You have to actually prove it, right? It just says, okay, see if you can do it. So you have to go through step by step. You enter these things in one by one. It will start with this. It'll start with this first one. And then I just do it as the only way I knew how to do it. I have to use subproofs. So I created a couple subproofs. One of which I wanted to prove this first. And these little symbols here, these are different rules that you can use. Like, for example, this is instantiation or induction. No, I'm sorry. Induction, not instantiation. This would be an induction of an or. This is called disjunction in induction. So basically you say, okay, I start with this, I get with this, and then you have to use a justification for it. I'm not going to go through all this stuff with the types of induction, these types of justifications. They are very complicated. But basically what's called things like, disjunction of elimination, disjunction and introduction. You have double negation, right? D&E. This is a contradiction, right? Because if you have a contradiction between 7 and 2, these are obviously you have this and you have that. You can't have them together. They're a contradiction. So basically, this allows you to go through and prove each step what you want to try to get to. And I did get to this, meaning that this and this are equivalent. That you can actually derive the law of excluded middle from the law of non-contradiction. Right? Congratulations, your proof is correct. It checks it for you. This is deductive reasoning. Doesn't care about people's fee-fees. It doesn't care what you like, dislike. This is logic at its finest. This is pure deductive logic. Right? I mean, I'll go build that circuit. I used to build circuits. I used to work with TTLs and CMOS. I did a lot with bistable amplifiers, quad operational amplifiers, 555 timers, 556 timers. Was it the 40? What were they called? Let's see, the 555s, the 556s. What was the quad operational amplifiers? The 4088s or something like that? Man, it's been a lot of years. But yeah, I used to have a lot of that stuff, dude. I used to have my circuit boards. I had a digital logic probe. Those were fun. You could tell if the signal was high or low, and you can have different gates, right? So when the gates would work, you'd have like two AND gates, or an AND or NOR gate, and you would take the digital signal logic probe, and it would have these little LEDs on it that would light up, red, green, yellow, and it would tell you if the gate was high, meaning that you had voltage at it. The gate was low. If it didn't, it would tell you, if you're having a square wave going through it, because a lot of these gates, on like a 555 timer, you would have it as what's called a bistable or astable or multi-stable way of having it oscillate. And yeah, those things were fun. It was a 4800 series. Yeah, 4800 series quad. This was there was a quad operational amplifier. But yeah, I remember back in those days, man. I had a radio communications license when I was 13. So believe it or not, I actually had to learn about electronics. And then I worked for Radio Shack for many years as a store manager. So yeah, TTL and CMOS are kind of cool because, well, TTL is just transistor logic, and CMOS, if I remember correctly, is complementary metal oxide. Is that what it is? I think that's what it is. I'm not looking it up, but I think it's complementary metal oxide. But the CMOS, I remember, is a lot more touchy. You got to ground yourself because the TTLs were a lot more hardy. But anyways, I want to show you that you guys can go to this site. And you can go to my blog. It's in the video description if you can't remember it. But go to the site and play around with this little logic checker. It's kind of fun. Start simple. It's not intuitive. There's a little bit of a primer called For All of X. It's not easy to read. I wasn't impressed by how it. I mean, it was good information, but it didn't make it simple for the user. This is not set up to be it's something that you just pick up intuitionally. It took me a while to even figure out how to use these rules properly. But it does tell you if your justification is right, not right. When you hit check, it tells you, dude, you're wrong on this, you're wrong on this. It is precise. You've got to have it in the exact format. It doesn't allow for any kind of variation from the syntax that it uses, right? So if you want to go prove, like, for example, like modus ponens or modus tollens, you can do that. You can prove material implications, and then, you know, P implies Q, P therefore Q. There's a rule of inference for modus ponens. There's a rule of inference for modus tollens. These are just some of the rules. I mean, these rules, there's probably about 50 different rules. So these literally just a handful of the rules that you're going to use. But a lot of them are mostly just types of what's called introduction rules or elimination rules. But you have some fun with it. Give it a shot. But anyways, that's my little presentation for the night on the laws of logic. Again, nothing really complicated. I didn't really want to dive too much into it because I don't think they really needed to be. I just wanted to show that this is what they are. This is what people are talking about. This is how you would use these symbols to represent it axiomatically. I know I've made some mistakes. I will go fix those. I've noted them in my head. But if you guys got any question on it, please let me know now. But be free to use these things as references. I would like that. If you go, oh, nay, you know what? I need that formula for the law of non-contradiction. Go get it. So CMOS, complementary metal oxide semiconductor. Yes, that's what the S stood for, semiconductor. Of course. Low power due to high impedance at the gate. But became a fuse when you're standing on carpet. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh my God, I fried a few CMOS. The static electricity and CMOS do not get along well. You have to wear this anti-static arm thing when you're using them normally, and I just was lazy. I never did. I'm not happy for it, but. All right, so anyways, I appreciate the people coming over. Like I said, it's probably not what you expected when you subscribed. I know we have a few thousand people that have come over from other channels. And hey, you know what? We are going to be talking about other things and dealing with some of the dumb crap that goes on. We have no choice at this point. I know I told my other subscribers that I want to get back more in the science and the philosophy, which is true. I really, really do. But like I've said for 8 years now, I'm not going to be able to please everybody. I'm not even going to try. Watch the ones that you want to watch dealing with science, watch the ones you want to do with philosophy, and watch the ones you want to do with relating to like the Katie Joy nonsense, because I guess I'm being sued. Yay! Civil, criminal, what else? Restraining order, SWAT team. I don't know. It's just like it changes every day. But I wanted to take a break from that, and I wanted to get back into stuff that I usually do. But I'm gonna have to like at least address a whole bunch of stuff coming up here. So I'm probably gonna do that tomorrow, or the next day. Steve murders microchips. Yeah. Okay. You know what? You know what we should do? How about this? I don't know about this week, but maybe next week. How about we do a little basic thing on circuitry? We have a electronic engineer, failed in engineering. She's got a master's degree in electronics. We got Bullinator, who's a logistician kind of. You know, well, he's a Boolean logic kind of guy. I think we can muddle through something, don't you guys? I mean, do you think we can muddle through how a simple circuit works? Yeah. By the way, if I had $1 for every time people are going to sue me, I would be probably rich because I'm not bluffing when I will countersue. I'm in a legit 100,000 lawsuit right now that I've already kind of won. I'm just waiting for the finances so I can ask for my money. But let's see here. But yeah, you guys like that? That's gonna be kind of fun. I know Mani and I were gonna do a crystal radio at one time, and I still want to do that, but I gotta look back into it. I mean, I remember the basics. I mean, I remember building a crystal radio years ago when I was like 13, and I understood how the germanium diode worked. I understand how the RC circuit worked, or the LC circuit worked. I understood how you have oscillations, you have capacitive reactance, capacitive inductance. I had all that stuff down, and so you could figure out how to do a tuning circuit with an air-gapped variable capacitor, grounding wire, antenna, a little earphone piece. That's all you really needed. And you just had the dial that acts as a rectifier to the signal. And I probably could explain, if I had to, the way the radio wave is modulated and how do you get the audio component out of that. But I'd rather have somebody like Manya and Bullinator with me who actually have studied it more recently than I have and probably could muddle through that. We're learning circuits. We're learning how circuits work, make better Minecraft redstone. Yes. Redstones are based upon logic. Yeah, believe it or not. Yeah. Maki says the drama stuff seems to have more seductive power than the educational stuff. Drama gives immediate gratification, I suppose. Yeah, and I get that. And it's unfortunate. And by the way, anybody ever says I deal with that stuff for views or money, you can tell them to go piss off. Because I sure the hell don't. I wish those people would drop off the planet, never to be heard from again, and leave the people that I care about alone. Right? Yeah, I wouldn't expect them to leave me alone because without me, they wouldn't have no lives. Right? I mean, not fronting here. I literally am some people's entire existence. And I'm not trying to sound egotistical or narcissistic. I know it comes across that way, but I'm not fronting. Without me, I don't think they would have lives because their entire existence seems to revolve around me. What are you going to do? But at least they could leave my friends alone. But we'll talk about that another time. Like I said, I'm trying to get rid of the drama for the day. I want to think about smart stuff. What else we got here? It doesn't matter. Billionaire says it doesn't matter which gates you have as long as you have the NAND gates. Yeah. So I mean, I can go through the gates. We can talk about NAND. We can talk about AND gates. We can talk about exclusive OR versus inclusive OR. I could muddle through those truth tables. What I get. The hard part is, Bullinator, is when you start adding these gates together, right? You could probably do it a lot easier as a graph, right? Or not a graph, as a table, right? If I had, okay, I have an AND gate, then I have an OR gate. Here's the values. What's going to be the, if I put them together in a parallel or whatever, what's going to be my final condition? Am I going to be high or low at the point of my digital logic probe? You can figure that out using truth tables, but that's where it gets a little more complicated, obviously. Todd says, I seriously wanted to handle the drama so Steve and Chesh can do what they want channel-wise, and I'll do the drama. Too long to read. You can have it all, Todd. All yours, buddy. Maki says, it might help reduce the number of people who absolutely must press the elevator button multiple times. Yeah, well, don't hold your breath on that. There's only going to be one in every crowd. There's always going to be one in every elevator at some point. Cheshire, we do not make enough money to make it be worth it. You're right. Save the drama for the non sequitur show. Yeah, save it for that. Then it's kind of fine. We expect we're probably going to get drama-related stuff on the non sequitur show. I've already reached out to a lot of people that are kind of controversial. So, yeah. Don't need it on this channel, but I know it's going to exist. I'm certain of it. Todd, exactly. I'll do the drama, and Stephen Chesh et al. Can get back to doing everything else, and I'll be the drama gatekeeper channel. It's what I want to do. If that sounds like a good idea, knock yourself out, buddy. We'll support you. Hey, the whole thing with the Great Debate community, as you see here, was predicated upon helping channels out. Now, fun fact: a lot of the channels that we've helped out over the years have a lot of the channels we've helped out over the years have thrown us under the bus. I get it. But you know what? You can't live your life not still helping people. And there are still channels we do help. I mean, Cheshire's channel's taking off. Bullinator, he does productions for a lot of channels we've been helping, like the Shills that have been taking off. They're also having a new channel, I guess, coming out with Ilya Moon. And so, yes, we will be helping other channels when we get the Non Sequitur show back. I can't stop helping people just because we've been shat on so many times by dishonest actors, right? People that we've gone out of way to help out just to have them turn around and basically kick us in the teeth, right? But anyways, I'm going to end this. Like I said, I don't want it very long. I do challenge people to go out and play with this natural proof checker. It's kind of fun. I will fix the mistakes in my blog, but please share my blog. Please, get it out there. And I've got some other stuff going on my blog as well that's unrelated to philosophy. I'm going to be putting some stuff on the blog that's of a personal nature relating to various situations with people. I have a little bit before with some people, but I'm going to use it as a whole bunch of things. I'm going to use it because I have the space on it, not just for science and theology and philosophy, But I'm going to use it for also things that I want to get out of a personal nature, because that's how I'm going to be able to express myself and have people go, oh, this is what the heck Steve's talking about. I don't have to watch a billion videos. Because again, it's not about the views. It's not about watching my videos. It's about having that information out there, right? And that's my whole goal. It's just same thing with having like this out there, the laws of logic. Get it out there. That way people can understand it. It's about informing and about being educational. That's pretty much it. The ETA for the Non Sequitur Show, I'm hoping that we're first in line for a hearing next month. The courts do go open on June 1st. I've already asked my lawyer, how do we get on the docket? Hopefully it'll be the very first week or so. And then we'll get the channel back as probably, if I had to guess, probably the day after Kyle gets put in handcuffs and goes to jail, and the judge says, you will get out of jail when you comply with the orders of the court. That's what I'm hoping. So the day after he goes to jail, that's probably the day that I'll get Non Sequitur back. Okay. Icarus, why did Gumby stop? Gumby ran his course. Gumby was a fun account, right? And people trying to make it into a harassment account was just too much for them, because it really wasn't. And I mean, I know who Gumby was, and they've told me who I can say. They've said you can say who it was. But I'm just not going to for right now, because I want the certain people that are all paranoid about it to remain paranoid, because I don't care. But yes, I know who Gumby was, but I didn't find out till like a week before they left or so. I actually, when Gumby came on the scene, I even said, you can actually check my DMs to them. I said, I don't know who you are, and I don't want to know who you are. You're funny. I'm so optimistic. Yeah, I know. Yeah, well, something to hold on to, right? I mean, that would be nice. Let's just say that's my dream situation, right, Icarus? But anyways, like I said, I will probably, if you guys want, I might go on the Great Debate Community tonight at some point. I gotta wake up. I'm not feeling like myself right now. It's just been a lot of drama related stuff. Nothing bad. I mean, it's not like anything's, personally like harmful. It's just that I've been trying to take care of other people and trying to help other people, and I'm pretty like drained myself. I got not much else to give, but maybe I just go on the Great Debate Community and just do a Unleashed something, and people can join and we can talk if you want. So if you haven't joined the Great Debate Community, the link is in the description for that as well. That's my other channel where we kind of do more free-for-all stuff. But I kind of hope you guys enjoyed this. Hope you learned something from it. If you got questions on the laws of logic, please reach out to me. I hope I didn't get too technical, or hope I wasn't too basic. You never know, right? You have to be like in a very kind of middle. But I thought this was kind of decent enough where I can explain to people, these are what they talk about, the laws of logic, and what they really mean by it. And then go practice on like the natural logic checker. Okay? So with that, guys, we'll be back in about an hour or so. If I want to go on the Great Debate Community channel, maybe Cheshire will join me, and we'll just shoot the crap for a while. Okay? And good night.